we're going to be talking about Breakout Brands, and I've got some fabulous people here who are going to tell us about their experiences. And just as a quick reminder about what a breakout brand is, Raf is handing out some of the sheets we launched last year at the Global Summit. A breakout brand is an evolution of challenger brand marketing, which says basically it's time to forget about the competition and put the customer first. Think about what your customers want, create the future, communicate with soul, and make sure that you are having rich feedback loops. And we know from last year's research that if you can emotionally connect with your customers, 83% of them said they will spend more money with you. So that's a really good reason to think about why you want to be a breakout brand. And what we wanted to do today is find out how customer service plays into that. So before I go into some of the research, let me introduce you to the people that we have invited here today. And I will tell you a little bit about them before you hear from them specifically. First, we have Anne-Marie Matthews. She is VP of Public Relations for Norwegian Cruise Line. Any cruisers in the audience? Yeah. Yes, very nice. She's responsible for the company's overall PR, and she has launched 4 new ships recently, so she has obviously got a lot of time in her hands, right? The Breakaway, the Epic, the Gem, and the Pearl. And for those of you unfamiliar with cruising, Norwegian really was the innovator in what was called freestyle cruising. They were the first ones to say, you don't have to eat when we tell you to. You can eat when you want, where you want. And they have also instituted a whole host of other flexibilities that have won them national recognition. Stephen Payne, my man in the middle here, is Vice President of Corporate Communications for Feld Entertainment. Feld Entertainment is the worldwide leader in presenting live, touring family entertainment experiences. These are things like Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey Circus, the Advanced Auto Parts Monster Jam, Monster Energy Supercross, Nuclear Cowboys, Marvel Universe Live, Disney on Ice, and Disney Live. Stephen leads an international PR team responsible for generating earned media across 70 countries on 6 continents for all of these different brands. And he has some incredible stories to tell about working in this entertainment field. And then finally, we have Eileen Scheel. She's Executive Director, Corporate Communications for the Cleveland Clinic. She oversees both internal and external strategic communications, crisis, and issues management. Now, some of you may know Cleveland Clinic as the nation's leader in heart care. They do a whole heck of a lot more than that. But also, they have really increased their global footprint. And in fact, you will soon find them in Abu Dhabi, bringing their unique brand of how to reinvent patient care and the patient care model to people all over the world. And she has some really interesting stories to tell about how you blend operational and communications initiatives to make sure that your brand is actually telling its story in a believable way. So with that, let's find out how important customer service is to breakout brands. And let's just start by first, I'd like to just ask the question, how many people here have contacted a company in the last 12 months because they had a problem with a brand or a service? Okay, almost everyone. Keep your hands up if you were happy with the outcome of that discussion. Pretty good. It's probably because we're all type A people who made sure we got what we wanted from that. When we announced our research results today, one of the statistics we found is that, yes, we are a very vocal, bold consumer group, and 88% of consumers will now pick up the phone if they have a problem or a concern about a product or service. Now, what happens when they reach out? Unfortunately, more than half of them are not satisfied. By the time they hang up the phone or close out the email, or even the few who still write a letter, they're not satisfied. And that really presents a problem for the brand. And one of the other things, before we talk about why that's a problem, is time frame. Call out, how soon do you expect to get a response? If you send an email or you call someone, how fast do you expect it to be resolved? Who would say within the hour? Instantly? Only Paul, I love that. Within 12 hours? 24 hours? Anyone longer than 24 hours? Right. We are very impatient. In fact, I know myself when I'm shopping on Amazon, every now and then when you go to return something, usually it's like print out your label right now, but there's a few vendors where it's like they have to send you an email and you have to print it out and you're like, oh my God, I gotta wait like 2 hours to get the email and I gotta come back and do this again. We have become this bold new consumer who wants things instantly and who wants resolution quickly. And we want to be happy about it. Now, one of the things that we have discovered is that most companies promise customer service, right? Have we ever seen a company that says we give crappy customer service, right? Nobody says that. But how many times have we tried to reach customer service and we can't find a phone number? Raise your hand, right? Or what happens? Every connection you make is an online FAQ or an online forum, and it's really hard to get to a real person. Sorry. And so on this slide, one of the questions we asked people was, do you believe the claims companies make when they say high quality, high personal service? And basically 8 out of 10 people said, no, we really don't believe you. And we think 20% doubt most claims, and at least 80% doubt some of the claims. And what that means is that we have a problem at the sales counter. And in the brochures that we have for you today in the study, that totaled up to $83 billion. That's how much money is lost in the defection or abandoned purchases. 78% of consumers said that they bailed on a transaction because of poor customer service or reported poor customer service. I don't know how many of you saw the Wired Women talk yesterday where the Mashable woman said, oh, I saw this, I got an email, it said there's this dress, I texted it to my great mother-in-law who said, oh, love that dress, great company, I'll buy it for you. If she'd texted it to her mother-in-law who said, love that dress, that website sucks when it comes to returns, try somewhere else, sale would have been abandoned. Because reports of poor customer service are just as bad as actually experiencing poor customer service. So one of the things that we want to focus on today is not just how you form emotional attachments with consumers, how you make sure that the experience that they have is wonderful, but if there is a problem or a service, how do you go back and make sure that not only are they satisfied, but that they become great ambassadors for you in the future so that you can avoid abandoned sales. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our experts, and we're going to start with, if you can put up NCL first, please. Anne-Marie is going to tell us a little bit about how they reinvented cruising.
Thank you, Christine. I saw a couple cruisers in the audience, so I was happy about that, but hopefully after this, everyone will want to take a cruise. I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of Norwegian Cruise Line and let you know that we actually started the cruise industry 47 years ago here in Miami. Probably no one in the room knows that because we did not do a good job of communicating that. And over 47 years, we didn't really do a good job of kind of putting our brand forward. And we're actually the third largest cruise company. There's 2 other very big companies that have the majority of the market. We're the small player. We have 10% of the market, so we need to kind of do better with less. We don't have the big budgets. We're not on TV all the time. You don't see, Kathy Lee singing about our brand. So we...
That may be a good thing now.
Yes, it is a good thing now. So we have to do a lot more with what we have, and really over that kind of 47-year time period, the brand never reached its full potential. So, I would say we'd never have been on your list, Christine, if we had continued on the path we were on. Luckily, about 6 years ago, we had a new CEO. We had some infusion of private equity, and we had a new CEO, Kevin Sheehan, come to our company, and he has looked at the whole entire company and has really reinvented the company on many, many different levels. And now I would say that we're very much aspiring to be one of your breakout brands. And hopefully someday we'll be on that list. But I want to just give you kind of a quick snapshot of what we did what we've done over our 6-year journey from good to great. We actually used Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, as kind of our playbook. And we've looked at all across the company and looked at ways to kind of reinvigorate the company and really focus on guest satisfaction and customer service. So Kevin actually very early on identified 4 pillars. Is it this one? Mm-hmm. There we go. He identified 4 things that we really needed to focus on. In order to drive demand to our company without those big budgets, we needed to focus on kind of 4 key areas within the company and really make those a focus. So we obviously felt that we needed to focus on guest satisfaction as one of the big things. Having a clear brand message, we didn't really have that. We were always telling people what we weren't, but so many people hadn't cruised that they had no idea what that was. So we had to redefine our brand message. We had to work with our travel agents. Travel agents, if no one in the room knows, book the majority of cruises. So we had really alienated a lot of travel agents, so we really needed to kind of bring them back in the fold and make them feel that they were important. And the other thing we needed to do was get our employees engaged. You can't give good customer service or have a great company if your employees are not engaged and don't really care about what they're doing every day. So we needed to kind of get the passion back. The first thing that we did very early on was defined our vision and mission. And we really wanted to keep it simple so that we could communicate it to all of our employees. And we really wanted to be the cruise line of choice. It's very aspirational. We wanted to make sure when people are thinking about taking a cruise that they book Norwegian. We created a whole new brand platform. It's called Cruise Like a Norwegian because we really wanted to Christine mentioned freestyle cruising, and that was very much a hallmark of ours, but again, no one knew what it meant. So we really had to focus on our brand and getting our brand out there to the forefront and saying that this is when you cruise like a Norwegian, you're doing something that's unlike anything at all that you can do at sea. So we successfully rebranded. I'm going to give you some examples of the campaign. We kind of we played off the Norwegian and looked at other things that you could do. You can chill like a Jamaican, you can love like a Venetian, party like a Brazilian, you get the point. And then we actually asked through social media, through Facebook, we asked our fans to tell us how they would cruise like a Norwegian. So you can see here, these were actually some winners of a contest that we had. You could chill like Lauren, you could dine like Andrea. I don't know if we want to be dining with her. And you could party like Ron. That was my favorite, actually, because he's having such a great time. So these were our actual guests on board, kind of showing us how they cruise like a Norwegian. One of the other things we did very quickly was we focused on our guest satisfaction scores across the fleet. A number of different programs that we implemented, but we have a scorecard that gets delivered every 2 weeks across the company and tells everyone how they're doing. So everyone knows how we're doing on guest satisfaction. It's an online survey that our guests, once they get home, complete. So we know, and quarter after quarter, month after month, we've been seeing those scores going up, which is great. We also had a program called Vacation Heroes. So this is where it was a training course that went out to the entire company, shoreside and our shipboard fleet. We have about 20,000 employees across the world. And we trained everyone on how to be a vacation hero, and that basically means how can you impact the guest and make them have a memorable experience that they're going to take home with them and say, wow, that was a great cruise, or wow, I'm going to go back on another Norwegian cruise because of what my room steward did. So we have our vacation heroes that are kind of throughout the company. We also reinvigorated our relationships with our travel partners. We told them that they were important and that they mattered, and we showed them that. And we had some huge investments and lots of communications to them. And then we also improved our employee engagement with a number of different communications methods. This is our monthly newsletter that goes out to the company with a message from our CEO every month. And there's many, many other things. Kevin goes out and visits the ships every month. So there's lots of things we're doing to make sure that our employees are engaged. And so this has kind of positioned us now where we are. We're actually getting ready to launch a new ship, Norwegian Getaway, in January. So we're looking forward to that. And then we're going back to our history of innovation. Like we said, we started the industry 47 years ago. We want to continue to be the industry leader in innovation, but making sure that guest service is at the forefront.
Thank you.
Oh, I think I pressed the wrong button. There we go.
Good, thank you. And now, Steve?
Well, that's tough to follow. Looks like some of my guys might have painted your boats, though. How many of you out in the audience? Let me go to my title slide.
He's going to put up Feld. 1 second.
Just have to dance.
No, I'm not gonna party like Ron. No one wants to see that.
No.
How many people out in the audience, and I can barely see you because of light, how many of you have kids under the age of 16? Excellent, excellent. You are all my customer. Absolutely every single one of you, and their children will be our customer. Real quick about Feld Entertainment. We are the largest live entertainment, family entertainment production company in the world. The largest entertainment company you might not have ever heard of, but I can guarantee you've heard some of our brands. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. 143 years old, a year older than baseball, older than Coca-Cola, older than the Kentucky Derby. A 3-century-long entertainment phenomenon. Disney on Ice. Obviously, if all of you have, some of you have little girls, they dressed up as princesses. I think we were talking about, she's not that little anymore, she dressed up as a princess. We communicate with these customers somewhat differently than Ringling Brothers. That's one of the challenges we have as a company, is not every brand that we produce or that we are a licensee of can we talk to those customers the exact same way, but there are two underlying things that we bring to every single thing that we do, since fundamentally the company does two things. We build shows and we sell shows. You talked about freestyle cruising. We have freestyle motocross. This is a production called Nuclear Cowboys. Those of you who have young boys in the audience, this is geared for them. Don't let them do this. Especially don't let them do this and light themselves on fire. We do a lot of that too. And then we also do Monster Jam. Everyone loves seeing Gravedigger drive through a camper. It's a lot of fun. When we first acquired this business, I knew nothing about it and was stunned by it until I actually saw it up close and personal and saw the audience reaction to this type of form of entertainment. It's not something that we expected, but again, it goes to show our Disney on Ice customer is not necessarily our Monster Jam customer. In some cases they are, but we have to talk to them in different ways. But the two premises we bring to the table are value for your money and experience you can have with your family. We are safe entertainment. I noticed your materials mentioned Cirque du Soleil and $100 tickets. You can buy a $100 Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey ticket, but you can also take your entire family to Ringling Brothers for $100. It's that value proposition that we bring to all of them. The same thing holds true for our other motorsports properties, Arena Cross, which is motorcycle racing inside, and Supercross, which is the NFL of motorcycle racing on outdoor tracks. Slightly safer version of competition than the guys who do backflips on motorcycles. But the same thing holds true, is providing that value, and we do it with different brands. And we communicate that value by letting our customers know that they can bring their family and have a wonderful experience together, so that everyone will tell a different story in the car ride on the way home. So for example, at Ringling Brothers, we expanded the experience by starting an all-access pre-show, which again, was invaluable in communicating the novelty that is Ringling Brothers, because there's no other place you can see an elephant paint a painting. And again, we also involve the audiences in the show itself. It's more experiential, so that expands the value of it. And if you buy one of your tickets to this show or any of our other shows, after it's over, you get a personal thank you from our chairman and CEO, and a way to contact us if you had any problems or even any suggestions on how you could improve the overall experience. At Monster Jam, we hold pit parties, which is basically an opportunity for those diehard fans to get autographs. The guys who drive these trucks in the trucks, it's almost a religious experience. They get up and close. We have our finals in Las Vegas, and I've seen people spend $5,000 on a large piece of fiberglass from one of these trucks. They spend more than that on shipping it home. But again, they value that experience so much. And our Nuclear Cowboys, again, this is one of our newer brands. It's for the younger male audience, also female, but again, get them close to the action, get them to experience it, get them in touch with the riders. And the same thing holds true. We want to hear from them on what they enjoyed about the show, what they would do different. This audience in particular is definitely one. They are not shy about telling you what they like and what they didn't like. But again, it's something that we do in every show, because if they don't come back, if they don't enjoy the experience, I think the statistic, I don't know if it still holds true, one person has a good time, they'll tell a couple. One person has a bad experience, they'll tell 30. And that's definitely true for all of our stuff, because I've seen people, and it's a strange phenomena now, watch the entire show through their cell phone. I must be a dinosaur, because that's clearly something I don't understand. But it's very similar to what you talked about, is giving people that opportunity to be involved and rapid response. I'm kind of like Paul. If I call you and you don't pick up the phone, or the email doesn't get returned in 25 seconds, you've got another issue, because you didn't respond to me in the time frame that I thought you should. Whether or not it's realistic or not, I don't care. That's the expectation that I have. So That's Feld Entertainment in a nutshell, and I will now cede control of the clicker to my colleague to the left.
Well, our customer is just a little bit different than theirs. I picked up the iPad today and I was reading a story on abc.com, and it was about a gentleman who was feeling some numbness in his hands, and every time he turned the doorknob, his arm hurt. And it turned out that he had a brain tumor the size of a golf ball behind his right ear. Because of the location of the tumor, they needed to do brain surgery on him while he was awake. As I read on, it was a story about a patient who is from Cleveland who was cared for at the Cleveland Clinic. So our customers have a high stress level, high anxiety. Cleveland Clinic is known for heart care, like Christine mentioned earlier. But we also do a lot of other neurosurgery, all kinds of different cancer treatments, et cetera. We're known as high touch, high tech care. Cleveland Clinic's known for innovative surgery procedures. We've been ranked in U.S. News and World Report as a top hospital. There's about 5,000 hospitals across the country, and we've been consistently ranked among the top 4. So back in 2008, we got some alarming news because although we were known for high-tech, great quality care, we got a report card back from our patients, and they ranked us below the 20% lowest hospitals in terms of patient experience. They ranked us low in doctor communication. They ranked us low in nurse communication, knowing what to do when they left the hospital, how well we educated them going home from the hospital after they had a tremendous heart surgery. But their overall experience, they felt that we were among the bottom of the top 5,000 hospitals in the country. So our new CEO, who is a famed heart surgeon and a very technical expert in surgery, learned a tough lesson. Personally, he learned about empathy and the lack of empathy that surgeons often have. And then looking at our scores, he was very disturbed to see where we ranked. So we went out, and he said that we may provide the highest quality of care to patients, but they just don't like us very much. And so one of the things that came out of that is he developed the Office of Patient Experience, and we named the first Chief Patient Experience Officer in healthcare across the industry and around the world. And that office does more than just make sure that patients are happy. A good patient experience also means that you're safe in the hospital, that you get high quality care, that you get good value for your care, and that you're satisfied. And so from that, it's also the experience patients have before when they call the appointment line to schedule the appointment. Once they're here, how is the flow through a hospital? Cleveland Clinic is 170 acres, and we have about 70 buildings on our main campus. So if you're facing a life-threatening disease and you're walking into a very intimidating environment, you really need some help getting through that process, and we were not doing a very good job. We also are facing, with the Affordable Care Act, the new healthcare law, a lot of changes in reimbursement. So if your patients aren't happy and they're being readmitted to the hospital and they're acquiring, conditions or infections in the hospital, you don't get paid for caring for those patients. And a big part of being successful in that treatment is good communication with your patients, and that just wasn't happening. So we were being fined. We were being, our patients were pretty upset about this. So we focused a lot on education, and much like Anne-Marie said, if you can't take care of your patients if your employees aren't engaged. And so we spent a lot of time developing the Cleveland Clinic culture and went through training with 43,000 employees about really what it means to be an employee at the Cleveland Clinic. We also, our CEO drove the message home that patients are first, period, the end, no matter what you're doing, who you are. And we renamed every employee a caregiver. So everyone, whether you're in the medical billing department or a tech or patient transport or security or even public relations, you're helping our patients and touching their experience while they're here. And much like Anne-Marie said too, we want to make sure that every patient that comes through our hospital has a positive interaction with our employees. At the same time, we wanted to focus on, the cultural change, and then how do we really focus on the patient and what do they need. We are fortunate to have a 5,000 patient base of patients who've been willing to be surveyed by us. So we do a lot of reaching out to them, tell us about your stay, what could we be doing better, et cetera. So we've really focused on doing a lot of things like for the satisfaction piece of it. We created an art and medicine program. Cleveland Clinic was just ranked among the top art museums in the state of Ohio. So we've really invested a lot in art and piping music through the hallways that's very calming and relaxing. We also have really put a focus on transparency for our patients, so there are interactive computers bedside in the hospital, so patients can go on the internet, they can look at their medical records while their medical team is there. We've done nurse rounding, so the nurses round at the bedside right in front of the patient, so they say, these are your medications, here's what we're going to do with you today, do you have any questions? And we write the names of the doctors and the nurses who are on that shift right at the patient's bedside. We've also color-coded all of our hospital scrubs. How many times have you been hospitalized and someone walks in the room and you don't know who they are, what their role is, what they're doing? So we actually give patients sort of a color-coded chart. So if somebody comes in a red jumpsuit, you know they're the vampire there to take your blood. And so that's really helped the patients calm down their anxiety level, their fear. And we've also empowered patients or our employees to really help our patients when they have a challenge. A quick story of a tech who was coming in and realized that the bed was real squeaky in a patient's room and took it upon herself to go down and get a new bed for the patient. And so, you know, I think just really making sure that our employees know that a priority in our culture is to really do what's right for the patient, no matter what your role is. Another thing we've done is we've brought pets into the organization, and so all kinds of dogs are there during regular hours, and it's really just to kind of put a smile on a face. We had an ABC News crew in the hospital, and the camera guy saw this mother crying, and he went right over to her and he said, you know, are you okay? Do you need anything? And she said, look, her son who couldn't walk because of a disability got up and held on to one of the dogs and started walking for the first time down the road. So there's a lot of benefit to doing initiatives like this. We also have greeters, so we call them red coats. They're people that wear red jackets and they're there to help with directions or do whatever is needed. So I think one of the things that we really focused on is trying to listen to our patients, listen to what they need, their family needs. We did away with visiting hours. We tried to make it, you know, they're in there for a scary reason, to really make it as pleasant as possible. So at the end of the day, we've become a leader in patient experience. We formed an association of patient experience officers across the country. There are now about 500 of them at hospitals across the country. We were recently written up in the Harvard Business Review on how we've become a customer service fanatic, and you know all the things that we've done in healthcare that nobody else is doing, and we've led the way. And it resulted in a new report card from our patients. We're now, instead of getting a failing grade, we now have an A, 95%. So, thank you.
I'd like to ask each of you a little bit about the reality check you give yourselves. And Eileen, something that you and I talked about I thought would be useful to share with the group. The way you know hands-on that it's working, the level of accountability that you take throughout the organization. You talked about the nurses rounding. I'd love for you to tell the group a little bit about the executive rounding that you do.
I forgot about that part. Yeah, we started a couple years ago doing executive rounds. So they're pairing up a doctor, a nurse, and an administrator. And so I round with our chief executive officer and our chief nursing officer. And every month at 7 o'clock in the morning, we walk the floors. We're assigned to a unit, and we can be in the transplant floor, we could be in the ICU, we can be anywhere. We talk to family members, we talk to patients, we talk to employees at all levels, physicians and the folks who deliver food to patients. And we ask patients, what could we do better? You know, are you comfortable? How is the food? Is it quiet at night? How are the nurses responding to your call button right away? Is there any advice you have for us? And it's amazing the feedback you get. And employees, we ask them, you know, do you have the equipment you need to do your job? Is there anything we can do for you? So we do that, and then we come back. There's about 250 executives and doctors who round monthly, and we come back and do a report out. A quick story, we ended up firing a couple employees after one experience because they pretty much refused to help this patient, and they didn't realize that we were rounding, and a patient got in trouble, and a nurse actually came up to me and said that, she said, my shift is over. And I said, well, we need help with a patient. And she said, well, you're going to have to ask somebody else. And I walked down, and there were about 3 other people that just flat out refused to help. It wasn't my patient. that wasn't, I take care of the patient next to that one. And that just is not acceptable. And the three nurses ended up losing their job over it.
And I know all of you do formal research, but that level of getting your hands dirty where you bring executives in, I think is something that is very unusual. Stephen, I wanted to ask you about, because you do so many countries, and we talked a little bit about the content, the way you listen to consumers to try and head off customer service issues. You actually change the content of some of the shows because of cultural differences.
Yeah, well, we also, all of our shows that perform internationally perform in the local language. One of the stories we talk about, I think it was actually Abu Dhabi, Disney on Ice played there, and we changed the show. Ariel from The Little Mermaid put leggings on for the modesty factor in that culture. We took the Three Little Pigs out of the show. So that's the type of thing when you're going across all of these various countries, we want to make sure that we're providing that same wholesome family experience within the cultural norms that we have, because the show that we would put in Mexico may be dramatically different from the show that we would put in the Czech Republic. Same thing holds true when we develop shows. We have to listen to the local culture and understand what would appeal to them. I used the example in China. We launched a show in China, a Disney live stage show called 3 Classic Fairy Tales. We thought it was a great show. It's going to be wonderful. Chinese audiences had no idea what those 3 classic fairy tales were. No clue. Their classic fairy tales were completely different than what we normally thought. So we actually had, in partnership with the Walt Disney Company, published guidebooks in Mandarin that said, these are the classic fairy tales that we want, that we're showing you so you can experience it. And then we noticed immediately their eyes lit up. The stories were similar to cultural stories that they had, but the characters didn't mean anything until you put it inside their experience. And that's really what we do with all the shows when they tour here and internationally, is make the show so it's within their experience, and they're going to be much happier about it and much more satisfied about it.
And Anne-Marie, obviously in your industry, sort of a rising tide floats all boats and sinks some of them. How does that affect you when others in your industry have difficulties, and what customer service initiatives do you put in place to differentiate or keep customers satisfied?
Well, I mean, it's been in the news quite a bit. The industry has obviously had some issues in the past year or 2 years. I think we just have to, keep going and make sure that we're delivering the best for our guests as we can. So, we do make sure that we're constantly delivering the best customer service that we can, despite the noise that's happening in the industry. And we actually use social quite a bit to monitor things that are happening. We use, obviously, Facebook, Twitter, but there's a huge cruise site called Cruise Critic. And things happen there. I go there to read what's happening in my company, because you'll find out things that are going on that you don't know on Cruise Critic because they're talking about them. And so we use that a lot to monitor issues that are happening, and we have someone that's monitoring that on a daily basis, and we respond as we feel necessary to kind of tell people, we're working on that issue, or give us some time on this, or, we'll take care of that for you. So we're always kind of monitoring Cruise Critic and responding to what's happening.
In the study that I know we have for everyone, we did talk about, that 64% of people will read reviews and consider that before making a decision. And like we talked about with the woman at Mashable, that influencer factor, I think sometimes people don't even realize the level of influence others have before they even make that decision. So that customer service element, in addition to all the product benefits and services, really does play a factor in whether or not they ultimately decide to follow through on their purchase. And we have about 9 minutes left. Oh, he's giving me 10. So I'd like to see if we have any questions from the audience. Paul. Mike is coming.
Can everybody hear me? Without a mic? Okay, usually that's true. So, in a world where so much of your corporate reputation is dependent on customer service, does it necessarily mean that at some point customer service has to report into public relations in order for PR people to be able to do their jobs properly?
I can take a quick stab at it. I think it's incredibly important, and our chief experience officer, his office is about 2 doors down from mine, so we talk all the time, and we work closely together. We've done extensive physician communication training, and that's really a partnership. I think it's important. What people expected out of healthcare long ago is very different what they expect now. They used to just expect to get a good heart surgery. Now they want to have a relationship with their doctor and their caregivers, and so I think it's more important that that especially in healthcare, from my perspective, that people are good communicators, and that's a good partnership where we are, fortunately.
Well, at our company and everything, to a certain extent, it already does. They don't necessarily report directly into the public relations, the communications department, but we've worked with them in their training, vetted everything that they, and all those possible scenarios that they could run into. And when they hit a wall, they don't call marketing, they call me, which is a good thing, because especially on, if it's a crisis issue or problem, or all of you, I'm sure, who are familiar with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, we're a lot of fun, but there's some groups out there that just don't like us. So clearly, when customer service gets that type of inquiry, they're going to want to look to myself and my team and everything to make sure that within the parameters that we have to deal with these issues, that they're saying the appropriate things.
And we work very closely with our guest services and our customer relations team. I'm probably talking to them on a daily basis, just checking to see if any issues are happening and how those are being resolved. And many times I'll need to kind of talk to them about how we actually resolve it so that it doesn't become a media issue. So it's definitely something that we work very, very closely.
Hi, I have a question. I thought all the cases were really great. Thank you for sharing them. Carnival and Cleveland Clinic, you both discussed having a new...
NCL, we have to interrupt.
Norwegian. Close.
Norwegian, sorry. You both discussed having a new CEO. So I'm curious, what kind of time frame did it take until you saw this turnaround? And do you think much is attributed to the fact that you had a new CEO who was more outward and forward-looking? Thanks.
I think that's a great question. Our CEO was 34 years in the operating room and really had to learn how to become a CEO. But real soon, he moves very quickly, and I think once he realized that there was an issue there, that became the institutional priority, is really fixing that, because he saw the potential for damage down the road. So I think if the new CEO made it absolutely a priority and came up with the term patients first, and he gave out, I think it was his first all hands employee meeting, he gave out 43,000 buttons that said patients first, and that was no question where we were going from there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, our CEO, like I said, he came in 6 years ago, and he was not from the industry, too. He was outside the cruise industry. He had worked for rental cars and other businesses prior to coming, so he had only been on one cruise prior to joining, and was with another line. So it was good for him to come in with kind of a fresh set of eyes and say, what's happening? He had run very successful businesses, so him coming in here to our company, really kind of looking everything with fresh set of eyes, not saying, oh, this is how we do it, so we should just keep doing it that way. He's like, why are we doing it? We need to question why we're doing it. And then he brought in, we changed probably about 90% of the management team as well. So I think there's only 1 or 2 people that were from previously to 6 years ago. So he brought in, again, people, experts from outside the industry. Our SVP of marketing is from outside the industry. Our SVP of hotel ops, same thing. So he brought in a lot of kind of fresh blood to reinvigorate. He kept people as well that were in the industry that kind of were experts too, so it was a great mix. And I think that mix has really helped us move forward with all the programs that I talked about. And I would say it's taken about 5 years to kind of fix all these things that we talked about. There's a long list of things that we changed. But I think now we're kind of seeing that kind of tipping point with our company and with our brand. We actually had a very successful IPO at the beginning of 2013, and we're kind of leading the industry on profitability as well. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed that everything keeps going on this track.
A
I have a question here. Yes, this is for Stephen. You mentioned obviously Feld offers a wide variety of shows on an international scale. You mentioned that you need to market them in a different way depending on who your audience may be. I'd like you to speak a little bit about what the process you go through to decide how you're going to market which show to which group of people. And also, given the international scale that you operate these shows on, which percentage of the work that you do you rely on your in-house PR team as opposed to working with locally based agencies?
Excellent question, and actually the answer is the same for both to a certain extent. A lot of the shows that I'll use the word export, the Disney shows in particular, we will work with an in-country promotional group. Japan, for example, it's a company called Chukyo Television, and we've been working with that company for 30 years. Again, it depends on whether or not it's a show that we can self-promote what we would do, or we need that expertise. Clearly, my team, a lot of the work they do for communications depends upon where the shows are. Some of the stuff that we rely on, we look to RBB for, because clearly, they're going to have a knowledge of the Spanish-speaking markets that we don't have. Shows that are in Greece, we rely on our Greek promotional partners. We have regional offices that have some expertise for those individually promoted shows that we would do. But in a lot of instances, we've always found it's really best to partner locally. They're going to know more about the market and what you're going to need to do to be successful than you will ever learn yourself.
With that, I know that they want us to end right on time. Do we have time for one more, or do we need to go? One more question.
Always could do one more.
One more? It's got to be one more. In the middle?
Since we're talking about breakout brands, and there was some talk earlier about kind of things that you can do to really cut through and be on, bold and creative. Can you just give me an example, maybe all three of you, of from a consumer communication standpoint, what's the most interesting, boldest, gutsiest thing that you've done recently, and what happened because of it?
Well, I get to walk Asian elephants through the Queens Midtown Tunnel every year. That's not exactly something you could ignore, and I think you were telling me that, you got cops pulled you over one time to make way for the elephants, so you got a herd of elephants walking down the street, my job is easy.
One of the things that we do as a company is look for opportunities to get our brand out in front of a lot of consumers, because as I said, we don't have those big advertising budgets. So we actually, 2 years ago, did an episode of Undercover Boss, which was huge for the company. It was a big risk because we had no idea, we're putting our CEO out there, we're putting our employees out there, but it aired in January of 2011. It was incredible. Like, over 30 million people have seen it. Our CEO gets stopped for autographs now. So it was really probably one of the best things we've done, over the past 5 years.
I had about 3 things going through my mind. I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things that was driven by our CEO was really teaching our employees a culture of empathy. So we challenged our media production in-house team to come up with a video that would describe what it means to be empathetic. And if you go to YouTube and Google Cleveland Clinic or search Cleveland Clinic empathy, please take a look at that, because it has gone all over the world. We gave it away for free. We produced it in-house, and it really has touched not just the healthcare industry, it has touched everybody from all places. And our chief experience officer was just invited to the Netherlands to give a talk to the health ministry and the hospital leadership of the Netherlands. So that was probably a surprise to us, how powerful that video was and how many people it touched, and it was tied to our communication efforts. Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and thank you to our panelists. Thank you for sharing your stories with us.